Anders Carlson has been the kicker at Auburn since 2018, and he's done a lot to try to separate himself from his brother, Daniel Carlson, because he was the kicker at Auburn for the previous 4 years before Anders became the starting place kicker. This past season, a lot changed for Anders because his season ended a little earlier than he expected. So let's talk a little bit about Anders, his career, and what is next for him this upcoming season. I would argue that Anders' best season so far was 2020 at Auburn. That is because he made almost 91% of his field goals. His longest kick was about 50 yards. And overall, he just had a very good season. No, he did not score as many points as he did in 2019. But when you look at the season as a whole, his field goal percentage, extra point percentage, and all that, it is his best season in my opinion. If you want to look at 2019, he scored 49 extra points he attempted 49 extra points versus attempting 25 extra points in 2020. And that was really the difference. The number of field goals, or the number of extra points, I should say, attempted in 2020 versus 2019. Had he attempted that many in 2020, you would be looking at a different scenario where he had more points in that year versus the previous year. Using that same logic, I would argue that 2021 was his worst season in the past 4 years. He scored 77 points. He only made about 67% of his field goals, and he scored the fewest amount of points. I mentioned 77. That was the fewest amount of points in 4 years. So he did have the worst season overall. And then when you add on top of it the injury that he had versus Mississippi State, it was not a great year for Anders Carlson, and evidently not one that he wanted to end on for his time as an Auburn Tiger. Carlson tore his ACL in the game versus Mississippi State. This was the same game where Bo Nix was hurt. Carlson did go down, and many of the fans thought that game would be the last time we saw him in an Auburn uniform. Fortunately, we found out in January that would not be the case. He announced on January 5th that he would be returning for the 2022 season to play for Auburn once more and try to continue that legacy of Carlson kicking. We've had a very long time with the Carlson brothers as kickers at Auburn, and he did not want to end on a sour note with a lackluster season and an ACL tear on top of it. So he will be returning for one more year as the place kicker, the starting place kicker for Auburn. Anders Carlson had this to say regarding his ACL tear. The Lord has blessed me more than I could ever express. Through many prayers and open doors, I am excited to continue my journey with Auburn football for my final year. I am continuing to heal through this ACL journey, and I am ready to get back to work. War Eagle, and let's finish some business. Looking at Anders' entire legacy at Auburn so far, remember he's got one more year, but so far in the past 4 years, these are his stat totals thus far. He's got 352 points that he's made. He has made 67 field goals. He has attempted 93 field goals, and that gives him a field goal percentage of 72%. As you can see, Anders Carlson and the Carlson brothers have done a lot for the Auburn Tigers and Auburn University, but Anders' time is not over yet. I'm really excited to see what he does in this final season. This is going to give our new freshman kicker some time to get used to college and get used to the team before he possibly becomes the starter in the 2023 season. So I'm very excited to see what Anders does in his final year and how he redeems himself compared to the 2021 season. Looking forward to this year, and War Eagle.